How's it going, everybody? Lampini here again with another football review. Today we are going to be covering Week 2. Week 1 had a lot of surprises, a lot of what we were expecting, but football is back, everyone, and I can't be happier. Now, before we go into the predictions, I want to go over how my predictions went for Week 1. So, I only got 3 games wrong. I had the Falcons beating the Steelers. That didn't happen. I had the Packers upsetting the Eagles. That didn't happen. And the Patriots upsetting the Bengals, which I was a big proponent, shocker of. And everything else, I guessed right. So my record is on the screen there. So this is what happens, guys. If you watch my review videos, you will be successful. You will get these picks right. If you're making money line bets, watch this video first because you can see my winning percentage right there. I'm a trustworthy source. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So first up, we have the Buffalo Bills 1-0 at the Miami Dolphins 1-0. So both these teams had victories coming into Week 2. The Bills with a really solid win over the Arizona Cardinals, 34-28, and the Dolphins beat the Jaguars 20-17. So very good game for both teams. Josh Allen was 18-23 for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns with a 90.1 passer rating. He also ran for 39 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. So Josh Allen scored 4 touchdowns in this game, and that pretty much encapsulates what Josh Allen means to the Bills. He is everything to that team. He gets it done himself. If Mahomes wasn't here, he would be the main character of the NFL. But he got it done against the Cardinals, despite them falling into a little bit of a hole. In that game, they rallied and they managed to win the game. As for the Dolphins, they put on a clinic against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tua Tagovailoa was 23 of 34 for 338 yards and a touchdown, 101 passer rating. Tyreek Hill, after being detained outside of the stadium, was in rare form. 7 receptions, 130 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Jalen Waddle also got his yards in, 5 receptions, 109 yards. This is what the Dolphins do. It's like the Marx Brothers 2.0. We have Jalen Waddle, and we have Tyreek Hill, and Tua Tagovailoa throws the ball to them. Now I was talking about how Tua is a physically limited quarterback, but the thing is, he gets the ball to his playmakers, and you can't ask for more than that. This game is going to be a big toss-up, specifically because it's divisional rivals, so you never know how it's going to go. But I think that the Bills are a little too strong of a team for the Dolphins to beat them. So I'm going with the Bills on this one, even though it's on the road. You never know what's going to happen in a divisional matchup. But I think Bills came in swinging, and they showed everyone what they're all about. They are Josh Allen or bust. They don't need Stephon Diggs. They'll find a way to win. I'm going with the Bills. So next game, I'm going to get out of the way real quickly here. It is the New York Giants, 0-1, at the Washington Commanders, 0-1. So you're going to get a bit more more in-depth analysis of the Commanders here because I'm a Commanders fan and I can go over what happened in Week 1 because I watched the game. Before that, I'm going to go over the Giants. They lost to the Vikings 28-6, which was just, it's what I expected. Daniel Jones was 22 of 42, 186 yards, and 2 interceptions for a 44.3 passer rating. At this point, Daniel Jones is who he is right now. Like, I don't know why they haven't benched him yet. They're still giving him a chance because of his contract, but I guess they're going to run with him until the end of the year, but he's not going to do anything for them. And poor old Malik Neighbors, he had 5 receptions for 66 yards. Hot new stud. Everyone said he was all great, all good, and he very well could be, but he's not going to be able to do well in the offense if it's manned by Daniel Jones, especially if they don't have Saquon Barkley as running back. They don't have anything, as evidenced by why they scored 6 points. They don't have anything. As for the Commanders, we did about as well as I thought we were going to do against the Buccaneers. Jaden Daniels was 17 of 24, 184 yards, 93.1 passer rating, but he did rush for 88 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So I have mixed feelings with this. Anytime a quarterback rushes this much, it tells me that their offense doesn't really work, and the athleticism of Jaden Daniels is what gets them ahead. So, I mean, I'd much rather have him passed for 2 touchdowns than rushed for 2 touchdowns. They barely got the ball to Terry McLaurin. The two-headed running attack between Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler was pretty good. They were able to move the ball. It's not our fault that Cade York missed 2 field goals. We left 6 points on the field. Those 6 points weren't going to win us the game, but you know that's what a good team does. If they have to kick a field goal, they have to kick a field goal, and they make it, and they get the 3 points. We couldn't do that. So fortunately, we released them. I don't know why it's so hard for us to get a good kicker, but there's that. The real concern with us is our defense. Our entire roster has been completely overhauled. We have a new assistant. We have a new defensive coordinator, new assistant coaches, and yet we looked like the defense that we were last year. The Buccaneers scored on all but one drive in that game, as evidenced by them scoring 37 points. That's all that happened last year. All that happened last year is defenses ran all over us, passed all over us, had long third down conversions through the air, and they scored on every single drive. And I just don't understand how we are as bad when we've turned over this much of the roster. Emmanuel Forbes is terrible. We need to get him off the field immediately. I understand he's a first-round pick, but he is garbage. He needs to go. He's getting blown in coverage. He's getting beat. The guy is just terrible. I don't want to see him on my TV. He's undersized, and he makes me want to pull my hair out. Our defense is terrible, but this game is going to be the real test to see just how bad our defense is. Because the Giants have probably one of the worst offenses in the league. And if they score a significant amount of points against us, then there is no hope for the season, is how I'm looking at it. The season will be over by week 2. I will officially accept that we're just not going to be a good team this year. I didn't think we were going to be contenders anyway, like making the playoffs or contend at all for a playoff spot. I didn't think that was going to happen. But if the Giants score a significant amount of points on us and get a significant amount of yards on us with as bad of an offense as they are, if our defense doesn't make stops, we're just a terrible team. We are just trash all around. We are just going to be terrible. Someone at my work said that they just look young and they need to get some cohesion. But I don't care. You don't need cohesion to defend against the Giants' offense. So I am going with the Commanders on this, even though the Giants have swept us so frequently. I think the Giants are a downtrodden team, and they know that they're not good. This is a game this is going to be a confidence-building game. It's at FedEx Field. It's at home. This just needs to be a confidence builder for us. And I'm hoping that's what happens. But I'm going with the Commanders, hopefully. So next up, we have the New Orleans Saints 1-0 at the Dallas Cowboys 1-0. Both of these teams are coming off of huge blowout victories. The Saints scored 47 points against the Carolina Panthers, and the Cowboys scored 33 points against the Browns. So a solid performance by both teams. Derek Carr was 19 of 23 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns with a 142.5 passer rating. No quarterback had a better day, except for one, which we'll go over later. Spoiler, it was Baker Mayfield against the Commanders' defense. But Alvin Kamara, 15 carries, 83 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 5.5 yards a carry. He's reminding me that he is just a solid running back year in and year out. Some running backs come and go. You get Kyron Williams, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, all these new guys that come in. Bijan Robinson, these guys are all great. They're setting the league on fire. But then you have these guys you kind of just forget about that stay consistent. And Alvin Kamara is one of those guys. They destroyed the Panthers, and I'm wondering if that's just the Panthers are that bad or if the Saints are that good. Well, they'll be put to test against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas in this game. As for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott was 19 of 32 for 179 yards and a touchdown. So they scored 33 points, but there was only one touchdown pass by Dak Prescott. There was a rushing touchdown by Zeke, a punt return touchdown, and 4 field goals that got them their 33 points. So, I don't know. They still scored 33 points. If you score over 30 points, I feel like no matter what happens, you should win. And their defense did what they were supposed to do. I don't think the Browns are going to be a very good team this year. So they did a very good job of taking care of business, beating up on a bad team, like I said last week. Who's going to win in this game? I think this is going to be a real big exposed game for the Saints. They had a good week 1, but I think people are really going to see just how mid they are when they go against the bullies of the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't think it's going to be that that big of an issue for the Cowboys. I think they're going to run all over the Saints. I think they're going to pass all over the Saints. I think their defense is going to force a couple turnovers on Derek Carr. I'm going with the Cowboys on that one. So next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1-0, at the Detroit Lions, 1-0. So one of these teams is coming off of a blowout victory over a bad team, and the other one is coming off of an overtime victory against the good team. So as for the Buccaneers, they went against the Commanders, and Baker Mayfield probably had the best game of his entire life. He was 24 of 30 for 289 yards and 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions for 146.4 passer rating. So he had the best game any quarterback had in week 1. And of course it was against my Commanders. So is that just because we're bad, or is it because Baker's locked in? Well, he did very well avoiding a lot of our sacks, even though we pressured him. He made a lot of good throws. But again, anyone's going to look good against the Commanders' defense, it appears. Mike Evans had 5 receptions for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Chris Godwin had 8 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown. So it was a career game for everyone involved. The Buccaneers looked great. Their defense was okay. They didn't force any turnovers, but they made some stops. We had to punt the ball a couple times. It was whatever, but they looked good in week 1 in their home opener. Not much to say about that. As for the Lions, they also looked good. They were going against a much better team, and they won in overtime. Anytime a team can win in overtime shows me that they're a tough, gritty, strong team, and they did very well. Jared Goff was 18 of 28, 217 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 85 passer rating. Jameson Williams had a huge game. He had 5 receptions for 121 yards and a touchdown. And then David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs both scored rushing touchdowns. So the Lions did very, very good. They kind of confirmed that they are contenders with this game. They didn't lay an egg. They didn't do anything. They played tough, gritty, hard-nosed football. And I think they're going to do the same against the Buccaneers. The Lions showed that they are going to, because the Rams are contenders. I don't care what anyone says. When the Rams have Matthew Stafford, they are Super Bowl contenders, even without Aaron Donald. And the Lions beat them. So I think it's going to be a lot of the same here. I think that they're going to beat the Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a very good game. I think the Buccaneers are going to show people that the division is theirs to lose. They weren't very good last year, but I think it's going to be one of those things where they won the division last year, and they're going to hang on to their title. It looks like Baker Mayfield is just getting better and better as he builds rapport with his team. Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. I am going with the Detroit Lions, though. I think they showed a lot of grit in their game, not giving up, going into overtime. And I think they're going to show us that they're just a more well-rounded team than the Buccaneers. So I'm going with the Lions. So next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts, 0-1, at the Green Bay Packers, 0-1. Now, both of these teams are 0-1, but they looked good in defeat, shall we say, against 2 pretty much Super Bowl contenders in the Houston Texans and the Philadelphia Eagles. So, and they were both close games. Like the Colts lost 27-29, and the Packers lost 29-34. So it wasn't too bad. Anthony Richardson did all right. He was 9 of 19, 212 yards, which doesn't sound good, but he had 2 touchdowns and an interception for 101.2 passer rating. So not bad. And then Alex Pierce had 3 receptions for 125 yards and a touchdown. He had a really long touchdown from Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is showing everyone his physical abilities. He had a lot of highlight plays. It's just going to be a matter if he can stay healthy, much like that was the problem with Cam Newton. As for the Packers, they're in a bit more trouble because Jordan Love won't be at this game. He sprained his MCL, so I think they said he's going to be out for like 6 weeks. He was 17 of 34 for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception for an 83 passer rating. And then his top receiver was Jaden Reed, who had 4 receptions for 138 yards and a touchdown. So Jaden Reed emerging very, very quickly as a strong contender there. But the Packers are going to have to employ a backup quarterback now. I don't remember who their backup is. It's someone well known. I do know that. But they're going to have to rely on a backup. Now, the Packers are usually pretty stable with these kinds of things. But I think that the Colts are going to avenge their Week 1 loss, and they are going to do well against a backup weakened Packers team. And they are going to bring it up to 1-1. I think Anthony Richardson showed a lot of athleticism and showed us that he is the future for the Indianapolis Colts. It looks like they finally got their quarterback of the future. I am going to be going with the Colts on this one on the road. They're going to take advantage of a weakened Packers team that is just trying to find their footing as they wait for Jordan Love to come back. So next up, we have the New York Jets 0-1 at the Tennessee Titans 0-1. So again, both of these teams lost. The Jets lost pretty badly to the 49ers as I'm recording this yesterday. And the Titans put up a decent fight against the Chicago Bears, but ultimately fell short. Now, for the Jets, they lost 32-19 against the 49ers. I was seeing a lot of memes this morning dunking on the Jets that they lost. Oh, Aaron Rodgers, da-da-da-da. At least you made it past the fourth snap. You still suck. Jets still suck. But here's the thing. The 49ers are a Super Bowl caliber team. They are Super Bowl or bust. I see them, because they did this last year, I see them running over pretty much any team that is at Kansas City or the Eagles or the Ravens, or I see them running over any of these teams because they are Super Bowl or bust, and they're the most talented roster on the team. So as for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers was 13 of 21 for 167 yards, a touchdown and an interception for an 82.8 passer rating. But it got to the point that they were down by so much that they brought in their backup quarterback, and he ended up playing a lot of the game. So it's just kind of whatever. I didn't expect them to beat the 49ers. Maybe I expected them to do a little bit better. Allen Lazard had 2 touchdowns. Great. Breece Hall had a rushing touchdown, so he did well. This is going to be a very good get-right game for the Jets. If the Jets don't convincingly win this game, then it's going to be marked for concern, shall we say. I think then I would be a bit concerned because the Titans are not a good team. They were doing well against the Bears for a little bit, but then they lost control. They lost steam, and then they ended up losing. Will Levis was 19 of 32 for 127 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 52.5 passer rating. His second interception was really bad. He threw the ball in triple coverage. I saw a meme where it's it's bad when the commentator says, "Oh no," while the ball is in the air. He saw it coming. He knew the ball was going to get picked off. Tony Pollard, their new running back, did all right. 16 carries, 82 yards for a touchdown. He averaged over 5 yards a carry. Anytime a running back can average over 4.5 yards a carry, I'd consider that as a win, but I don't think the Titans are really going to go anywhere this year. It's a big rebuilding year for them, much like it is for the Commanders. But I don't think Will Levis is the future like Jaden Daniels is, because I thought Jaden Daniels did pretty well. If you're throwing 2 interceptions against the Bears, I guess the Bears have a good defense, but I just expected more out of them. So this is a big get-right game for the Jets. I'm going with the Jets on this one. If they don't win, I think they're going to be in trouble. Okay, so next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers at the Minnesota Vikings. Both of these teams are 1-0, and both of these teams are coming off of convincing victories. One of them was playing against an above-average team, and one of them was playing against a really bad team. The bad team being the Giants that the Vikings beat. But they still won 28-6. Sam Darnold was 19 of 24 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception for 113.2 passer rating. Very impressive showing by Sam Darnold. I had a feeling he was going to do well. I think Sam Darnold's going to do admirably. He's one of those guys that was never given a fair shake because he was. What teams has he been on? He's been on the Jets, terrible, and he was on the Panthers, terrible again. So he's barely had any opportunity to be on a somewhat decent team. So I think he's going to do well. I don't think he's going to do great, but I think he's going to be comeback player of the year caliber, shall we say. Aaron Jones had 14 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. Very surprising run by him. I didn't think he was going to do a whole lot in his new home. A lot of running backs are on different teams, and I was very, very impressed with what he was able to do in this game. As for the 49ers, their stat line here is very deceptive. Brock Purdy was 19 of 29 for 231 yards, 89.9 passer rating. Typical game manager numbers by Brock Purdy. I wouldn't consider him a game manager, but he's not going to be one of these guys like Mahomes or Josh Allen who puts the team on their back. I think he's very much like a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff type. But listen, manages the game, doesn't turn the ball over. They had 6 field goals in that game, and similarly to the Steelers, field goals are all well and good, but when you go against actual good teams, you need to put the ball in the end zone. So I don't know how concerning that was for the 49ers. I don't know if it's because the Jets' defense is good, but they should be fine. This is a game that I think the 49ers, frankly, should win. I think it's going to be very concerning if the 49ers lose to a backup quarterback, especially a team that's just not as good as the Vikings. I understand they have Justin Jefferson. And if Justin Jefferson is the reason that they win, like if Justin Jefferson has 150 yards and like more than one touchdown, I'll be like, well, okay. Justin Jefferson just put the team on his back. He cooked, and he was able to just like beat the 49ers single-handedly. But if that doesn't happen, and it's a team victory by the Vikings, then I'll be a bit concerned with the 49ers because, like I said, when I was talking about the Jets, the only teams that I think are going to give the 49ers a run for their money are contenders. These big teams like the Ravens, like the Eagles, like the Chiefs, Texans. I can't remember off the top of my head who they play this year, but it's going to be those kinds of teams that are going to give the 49ers a run for their money. But for this game, I think the 49ers are going to win pretty handily. So next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the New England Patriots. Both of these teams are 1-0, and the biggest surprise of Week 1 was the Patriots upsetting the Bengals. Now, the Bengals are known for having slow starts. They've done it many, many times. But the Patriots looked good. Their defense looked good. The Patriots, say what you want about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, the one thing that the Patriots always had going for them throughout the entire dynasty was that they had a great defense. And that might carry over into this Gerard Mayo era. Jacoby Brissett, typical game manager numbers, 15 of 24, 121 yards, 75 passer rating. And Ramondre Stevenson had a career year, 25 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Very, very good showing by Ramondre Stevenson. If the Patriots play game manager football, they run the ball, don't turn the ball over, get in the end zone when they need to, they'll win games. And the Seahawks, for me, are a very beatable team. They did beat the Broncos, but the Broncos aren't a very good team. However, you never know. Like I always say, divisional. Well, this isn't a divisional matchup, actually. I take that back. Geno Smith was 18 of 25, 171 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and 87.2 passer rating. And then Kenneth Walker had another good game, 20 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown, averaged over 5 yards a carry. Very good performance by Kenneth Walker. This is going to be a lot closer of a game than I think a lot of people expect. It's in Foxborough. The Seahawks are traveling cross-country, which is something that a lot of people don't really take into consideration when they see teams play. I think the Seahawks are a mid-enough team that the Patriots can play good defense and win at home. I don't think the Patriots are going to finish out the season like this, but I think they're going to get off to a 2-0 start. Remember, the Commanders got off to a 2-0 start last year, and they finished 4-13. Not exactly saying that the Patriots are going to finish 4-13, but I do think they're going to kind of lose steam as the season progresses. So I'm still going with the Patriots, though, for this one. All right, so this next game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Carolina Panthers. The wonderful, wonderful Panthers. They are really taking the heat off of my Commanders as the worst team in the league. They made an embarrassment of themselves, losing 47-10 against the Saints. Bryce Young, once again, 13 of 30, 161 yards, 2 interceptions, a 32.8 passer rating. I just think that we're never going to know if he was a good quarterback or not. Sure, he's undersized, but I just don't know if we're ever going to see him as doing well because he's on such a bad team. Had another bad game, and I think that's just what is going to be happening with them. As for the Chargers, they did very, very well. Justin Herbert was 17 to 26, 144 yards and a touchdown, 92.5 passer rating. And J.K. Dobbins had an incredible year, 10 carries, 135 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 13.5 yards a carry, but it's because he had a really long touchdown run. Chargers ran over the Raiders 22-10. They're looking pretty good, and look what a good head coach can do for Justin Herbert. They looked like contenders. They looked really, really good. And even though it's at Carolina, this is a game that the Chargers, frankly, need to win. They, when you're establishing yourself as a good team like this, you got to take care of the competition. You got to take care of business. This is the take care of business kind of game for them, where they just need to show people, all right, we're not the same old Chargers that are going to blow leads. We're going to go in there. We're playing a bad team, but you know what? We're going to beat the pants off of this bad team. So that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to win convincingly. And with their performance against the Raiders, which is another below subpar team, I think they're going to do it. I'm going with the Chargers on this one. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Both of these teams are 0-1. They both lost in pretty bad. Well, no, I take that back. The Jaguars made the game pretty close. Trevor Lawrence was 12 of 21 for 162 yards and a touchdown, 97.7 passer rating. Again, mid numbers by Trevor Lawrence. As the number one overall pick, we need more than just mid, but we'll see how he does against the Browns. But it's starting to look like Trevor Lawrence is not going to take that next step into elitedom and is just going to be a mid quarterback a la Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith. He's not going to get into that upper echelon that has like the Josh Allen's, Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons. It's a very specific tier. It's hard to get in that tier, but when you are touted as the greatest prospect since Andrew Luck and you come into the league as just an average NFL starter, that's going to be a disappointment for Jacksonville. But he is still their franchise quarterback, so what? As for the Browns, Deshaun Watson, again with a bad game. 24 of 45, 169 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions for 51.1 passer rating. We're in year 3. There we were making excuses. Oh, he missed that whole year with the suspension. Oh, he was rusty. Oh, he was injured. We're running out of excuses. Deshaun Watson left his quarterback talent on the massage table. That is the headline here for Deshaun Watson going in. I don't know how you forget to play football. I don't know if it's because of the money. I don't know what it is. But it is the most insane thing imaginable that this guy that was a couple years ago expected to be in the same league as the Justin Herberts and the Josh Allens and Patrick Mahomes of the world, of being that elite quarterback, just falling into this subpar, barely even a starter. The only reason he's a starter right now is because the Browns gave him all that money. It's just amazing. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. But, it is what it is at this point, and that's how the Browns see it. Will Jameis Winston or Tyler Huntley get into the game? I don't know, but this is a game that I think the Jaguars should win. It's going to be another get-right game. The only thing that's going to stop the Jaguars is the Browns' defense. If Trevor Lawrence throws 2 or 3 interceptions and he loses the game because the Browns' defense does really well, because the Browns' offense does not have a lot going for them because they don't have a good quarterback. They don't have Nick Chubb. They don't have a lot on offense right now to really get the ball rolling, as evidenced by their 17 points against the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is supposed to be their strong suit, and they gave up 33 points. So I am going with the Jacksonville Jaguars on this one. I think they're going to win. This is going to be a big get-right game for them. That AFC North or AFC South looks really competitive, more competitive than we thought with the Indianapolis Colts. So the Jaguars need to do what they can to stay competitive in that division. It's the Texans to lose, but the Colts are right up on their tail. So it'll be really interesting. This is a game that they need to win. I am going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, both of these teams are 0-1, but the Ravens are playing the defending Super Bowl champions. So can't say much more about that. The Ravens played very well. They were within a single toe of Isaiah Likely to getting overtime forced against the reigning champions, but they still played pretty good. The Ravens are loaded with talent. They can run a 2 tight end front, which really helps in the long run. They did very, very well. Lamar Jackson was 26 of 41, 273 yards, 1 touchdown, a 90.8 passer rating, and he also had 122 yards on the ground. I think this argument of Lamar Jackson being a running back, that narrative, it needs to come to an end because Lamar Jackson threw the ball 41 times. He is a good passer. He's not a great passer, but he's a good enough passer to get him by, and his running ability is what it is. I'm sold on him now because I used to not be sold on him because I say he needs to be more consistent. He needs to become a better passer. He's done all those things. He's become a better passer. His big thing is, can he get it done in the playoffs? That remains to be seen. And he threw the ball very well. Derrick Henry scored a rushing touchdown. That's my man. I'm glad that he did well. Isaiah Likely had 9 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown. So that must be very encouraging for Ravens that their backup tight end is just as good as a starting tight end on any other team, which is really good. As for the Raiders, Gardner Minshew's their starting quarterback. He was 25 of 33 for 257 yards and a touchdown, a 92.5 passer rating. Not bad, but they're not going to put up much resistance against the Ravens, and this is going to be a classic get-right game for the Ravens. They are at home. They should run over the Raiders. It should be a good game by Lamar Jackson. It should be a good game by the rest of the team. This is what you call a showcase game for the Ravens. And I think they're going to be operating on all cylinders. And I think they're going to beat the Raiders pretty easily, which is why I'm rushing through this one. I'm sorry, when you have Gardner Minshew as your quarterback, you're not set up to succeed. At least when with the Commanders, where you have Jaden Daniels, they are trying to establish a franchise quarterback. Gardner Minshew is not a franchise quarterback. I think the Raiders are going to look for one in the draft next year, but that just means this is going to be a loss year for them. And depending on how good they do, they may lose out on one of these quarterbacks depending on how good their record is. So you never know, but I think the Ravens are going to easily win this game. So next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Both of these teams lost, but both of these teams fought hard. That's kind of been the narrative for the Cardinals, is they're not a very talented team, but they still fight hard. They still fight hard, but they come up short because they don't have the talent. As for the Rams, they did well. They played against a NFC contender, so they did about as well as you could. Matt Stafford was 34-49, 317 yards, a touchdown and interception for an 85.2 passer rating. And Cooper Kupp returning to form with 14 receptions for 110 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua is on injured reserve. Very, very tragic that we haven't been able to see both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp showing off that what they can do side by side. But if Cooper Kupp stays healthy, they are going to be a strong team, because in 2021, Cooper Kupp had one of the best all-time wide receiver seasons, and that's no hyperbole. If you see it, it's one of the best all-time. You know, you think of guys like Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, or Jerry Rice having best all-time seasons, and if Cooper Kupp retires with that being his only great season on his career, he'll be known as a one-hit wonder, but the season speaks for itself. The Cardinals, again, Kyler Murray was 21-31, 162 yards and a touchdown, 83.4 passer rating. The frustrating thing with Kyler Murray is he's a dual threat quarterback, which means he's going to be good for fantasy, but I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he is good enough to win the Cardinals games, and it's so tough because he's this close to being that good. He is this close to being a franchise quarterback that can win them games, and he wins them games sometimes, but he's not as good as Lamar. I don't even think he's as good as what Anthony Richardson can be, which I think is a serious issue, because that puts the Cardinals in purgatory. They are in a really bad purgatory where Kyler Murray's their franchise guy. They paid him all this money, but he's not good enough to get them where they need to go, that being a championship. So I think the Rams are going to win this game pretty handily. They're gonna. It's another get right game. It's another get right game where they're playing against a bad team, and they need to showcase why they're NFC contenders. Matt Stafford needs to go off. He needs to throw for 300 yards again. He needs to throw for more than just one touchdown. He needs to show, and the Rams need to show that they're a high-powered offense and that they're also a very good defense as well. So I'm going with the Rams on this one. So next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos did all right, but again, they fell short against the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers had a very interesting game against the Falcons. This is the game I watched in the 1 p.m. slot as I was waiting for the Commanders, with Red Zone on the side, of course. But a very interesting performance because Russell Wilson was out with a calf injury, so Justin Fields had to come in, but he had a very good game. He was 17 of 23 for 156 yards and a 91.9 passer rating. So he managed the game, is the best way you can say it. He ran when he needed to. He made some pretty big throws, too, with that rocket arm. So you can say that he managed the game and did very well. The real star was Chris Boswell. Kicked 6 field goals, and I want to say 4 of them were over 50 yards. That's incredible. Move over Justin Tucker. Chris Boswell is the second best kicker in the league. But what I'm concerned about is that's where all 18 of the Steelers' points came from. When they play a good team, they are not going to get by just kicking field goals. I know their defense is elite, and I know that TJ Watt literally had 2 strip sacks called off with penalties. So he's getting to the quarterback, and he is going to get, the Steelers win in such an interesting way because their defense keeps them in games. They force turnovers, and they do all these great things. If their offense was more high-powered, you're looking at a 12-win team. But their offense is just never good. Najee Harris is a good bell cow, so they can get first downs when they need to get first downs. Their offense is very efficient, but they lack the splash plays. They lack the high-poweredness that a lot of other teams have, but they do have George Pickens, and George Pickens made some really, really good plays. That guy is just something else. I feel like every time I watch the Steelers, George Pickens is making some kind of highlight reel catch. I think he's very underrated, and I think he's a top 10 caliber wide receiver. He just hasn't had the quarterback to really show off his abilities, but he is very, very good. In this game, I think the Steelers are going to win because I don't think the Broncos' offense is going to be enough to score against the Steelers' defense. I think the Steelers' defense is going to force some turnovers. And if it's the same as it was here where they kick 6 field goals, so be it. I think that's going to be enough for them to beat the Browns, but it's not going to be enough to beat the Bengals, or it's not going to be enough to beat the Ravens. But I think it's going to be enough for the Broncos. Bo Nix, his debut, not very good at all. He had a rushing touchdown, but he was 26 of 42 for 138 yards and 2 interceptions, 47.5 passer rating. Not good. It is what it is with them. I think they're another rebuilding team, except I don't think Bo Nix is it. He threw the ball 42 times, 2 interceptions. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains with him. I think he's going to have a pretty bad year, as bad as a rookie quarterback can have, but it remains to be seen. We're thinking about year 2 with him. Will he get better with a year under his belt? That remains to be seen. We'll wait and see. So next up, we have a rematch from a couple years ago in the playoffs. We have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are coming off of a solid win against the Ravens, showing everyone why they're Super Bowl champions. And the Bengals had an upset loss to the New England Patriots. This is not good for them. I know they start out slow, but you got to win those kinds of games against layup teams. You got to do it. Very poor work by the Bengals. Joe Burrow was 21 of 29 for 164 yards and 86 passer rating. So he was 21 of 29. Not too bad from the stat line there, but he didn't look great. They only scored 10 points against the Patriots. They have got to do better than that. As for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes was 20 of 28 for 291 yards, a touchdown and an interception for a 101.9 passer rating. Very good performance by 2-time MVP, 3-time Super Bowl champion. And then Rashee Rice for 7 receptions, 103 yards. So Rashee Rice is showing us once again why he is the number 1 receiver there in Kansas City. Xavier Worthy had 2 touchdowns in very impressive fashion. They had the end around where he just ran in and scored. Very impressive showing. I think the Chiefs are going to be even better than they were last year because they had an off year last year. I think they are going to do it again. I think they're going to make a playoff run again. If Mahomes doesn't reach his 7th straight conference championship, I'm going to see it as a surprise because they're looking good. They're on the top of their game. I think it's safe to say that the Chiefs are a dynasty now. Once they won that 2nd ring, I think it's safe to say that they are a dynasty. The fact that they've made the conference championship the last 6 years, I think, is incredible. That's only rivaled by the Patriots that did it. They did it 8 years in a row, I think, where they made the conference championship in a row. The Chiefs are rivaling what the Patriots have done, and the Patriots were the best dynasty in NFL history. So not much to be said. Are the Bengals going to be able to upset them? I don't think so. I think the Chiefs are going to win and move up to 2-0. So next up, we have the Chicago Bears at the Houston Texans. Both of these teams are 1-0. The Bears won, but their number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, did not look that good. He was 14 of 29 for 93 yards with a 55.7 passer rating. He did not look great. He didn't turn the ball over that much, but he missed some guys that he was supposed to hit. It was not the best showing by him. The Bears got no offensive touchdowns in those 24 points. They had a pick 6, a blocked punt touchdown, and 3 field goals. That's how they scored. It's giving 2006 Bears vibes. So even though they said Caleb Williams was going to be a great quarterback, he didn't look good in week 1. I don't know why the Bears are so cursed that they can't have good quarterbacks, but that's what happened there. As for the Texans, they scored 29 points, and it was a solid showing by C.J. Stroud, reminding people that he is as good as he was last year. He was 24 of 32, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 115.9 passer rating, 0 turnovers. Joe Mixon did really well. He had 30 carries for 159 yards and a touchdown, averaged 5 yards a carry off of 30 carries. Very, very impressive. And then Nico Collins had 6 receptions for 117 yards. So Houston Texans are showing us that they were for real last year. They were not flukes, that they are a new team, they're a young team, but they're a good team. And they beat the Colts. They beat the Colts in a hard-fought game, but they fought till the end. It was very impressive by C.J. Stroud to rally troops, rally the team, and it was a very good performance. The Bears, they looked good, but their defense, I think, is not going to be able to handle the Texans. And if their offense stays as bad as it is, they need to step it up on offense because they're not going to be – the Bears with the offense that they showed last week, they're not going to be able to beat teams the caliber of the Houston Texans with that. So that being said, I'm going with the Houston Texans. I think they're going to win this game. So now we come to the Monday night game. We have the Atlanta Falcons 0-1 at the Philadelphia Eagles 1-0. Kirk Cousins did not have the best game. He was 16 of 26 for 155 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, and a 59 passer rating. Now, I know that the Chiefs, not the Chiefs, I know the Steelers have a really good defense, but so do the Eagles, or they did at least. They had a really bad defense last year, but it looks like they may have cleaned up a lot of that, as evidenced by last week, what they were able to do to the Packers. I think that they're going to be a lot better of a team. Jalen Hurts had a solid outing. He was 20 of 34, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 80.3 passer rating. He did all right, but the real star of the show was Saquon Barkley in his Eagle debut. He had 24 carries for 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a receiving touchdown, like 135 yards from scrimmage and 3 touchdowns. There's not much more you can ask for a running back making his debut. I drafted Saquon in the first round of 2 of my fantasy leagues, so I was very happy to see what I saw from him. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He just always gets it done, too. It's so impressive. He always gets it done. So, that being said, the Eagles, whatever growing pains the Eagles had at the end of the season where they completely collapsed, whatever problems they had, it seems like they've resolved it because, goddamn, if they didn't look darn good. It's going to be interesting because if Kirk Cousins keeps playing subpar and keeps not winning them games, not losing them games, but not winning them games, I'm wondering if he will get benched for Michael Penix. It's going to be very interesting. I can't really imagine that happening anytime soon. Maybe if the Falcons drop to like 1-6, they'll see what they have with Michael Penix, and Kirk Cousins will just fall into obscurity, which is very surprising considering how he did with the Vikings before he tore his Achilles. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I really don't, but with his current situation, there is a fire lit under him where he needs to do well. He can't just play like an average starter. The Falcons are they're ready to win now. So from that perspective, I think it was pretty smart for them. But that concludes the ratings. Week 2 is going to be upon us before we know it. I really hope the Commanders win. If they lose badly to the Giants, our season is going to be over by week 2, which is a record because our season was over by week 5 last year when we got embarrassed by the Bears in week 5 on Thursday night. Our season is going to be over by week 2 if our defense gives up too many points to the Giants. So we'll wait and see what happens, but I will see you all next week. Take it easy, guys.